Okay, so thank you all again for joining us for the Designing Your Life for Grad Rebel Advantage Students workshop today. We have Dr. Chris Hughes, Career and Life Design Specialist with Career Services, here to guide us through this workshop this afternoon, evening, I guess. So I'll leave it at that. I'll let you provide further introduction, Chris, and I'll pass it right over. Thank you so much for being here with
Yeah.
us.
Thank you, Alyssa. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Chris Hughes. Like Alyssa said, I'm a career and life design specialist here at UNLV. Fun fact about me is I did my undergraduate degree here in psychology. Graduated a decade ago, so I'm back here, and it's really great to be able to be back with UNLV. Now, I'm sure that y'all are probably tired of this after being in college and all the semesters, but I am going to have us start with a quick little icebreaker. So, if you could have one job for a day, what would it be? And feel free to either type it in the chat or you can unmute and just say it and tell a little bit about like why you're interested in that kind of a job. All right, Candy, we have a teacher. Awesome. Wanting to help kids. Yes, that's a great reason to be a teacher. We have pharmacist, project management for a construction company, veterinarian, CEO, child development specialist, another vet there, a neurosurgeon, psychologists. So many great career paths and so many, like, really kind of like values driven careers as well. General surgeon. And go ahead and keep putting it in there if you haven't yet. A chef, we have a wildlife biologist who'd rather spend 5 days without showering in the wilderness than spend one full day in lab coats. Amazing. Marine biologist, that was my childhood dream. Did not happen, but that's okay. And so thank you all for, participating in this. One of the reasons why I like to ask this kind of a question is if this is a job that you would want to do for a day, is it the kind of job that you may want to just pursue? Or are there things that may be coming up that you're like, oh, I can't do this for whatever various reasons? And one of the things about life design, which we'll get into, is kind of talking about like, you know, why you may have put in those blocks or why you're no longer going that route, even if it is something that you would want to do. Now, if you all can do me a favor, Career Services is just trying to collect data on how many students were able to reach each semester. Um, Honestly, once you are in a professional job, data is one of the most important things that can help. So if you could just go ahead and scan that real quick and just put in your Rebel email address. So I'll give a little bit of time for y'all to do that. We're going to go ahead and get started then with an introduction to life design. So you may have heard this before, you may have not, but we're going to go into what life design is, and then we'll do a couple of activities related to life design. All right. So the question is, why life design, or even what is life design? And life design, it was created by two engineering professors at Stanford, and it's really about being able to combine like your career path, academic path, and personal path together in order to design a path that you love. And life design has been shown to be holistic, relatable, applicable to diverse audiences. It's an iterative process, and really, it's a framework. And like I said, it's not just career focused, even though, like, career is a big part of it. It's really about using design thinking in order to make the choices, explore the options, and design your life in a way that just works for you. So I want to share, this is one of the activities I like to do with students related to life design, and it's kind of like a quick self-reflection. It's called the Work, Play, Love, Health Dashboard. And all this is really looking at each of these categories and kind of doing a self reflection on, like, okay, do I feel full in this category or do I feel empty? And so work includes anything related to career satisfaction, educational satisfaction, a sense of purpose or growth. Play includes any activities that bring you joy or relaxation or a sense of renewal. Um, Very importantly, these are like not work. Like these are things that you do in your kind of like free time. Love, this is relationships, and it can be, romantic love, it could be familial love, it can be platonic love, it could be, pet love or community love. And then finally, health, which is both your physical and mental well being. So includes your energy levels, stress management, and just healthy habits altogether. I can talk from my experience of being in college. There are times when I was very stressed, had low energy levels, and I didn't always get the chance to kind of reflect on that and take care of myself. And so, what I want us to do is, I want us to take a moment and kind of fill out this dashboard. So, you can either use a piece of paper, you can put it on your computer, you can color in the lines like you thought, like you saw previously, or you can just write a number for each of these four. And then I want you to focus on one of these that you would want to improve slightly, and what is one action you can take this week to slightly move it. All right, I see someone saying they want to improve in the area of health. Um, how would you do it? It's like, again, it could be, we're not looking necessarily to make the biggest changes, like, because it's hard to do that. And so I always say, like, what can move it from like 0 to zero point 0.1 if need be? So, what are some things that you can do? I'm seeing play and health so far as the biggest areas. Setting aside 30 minutes at least once a week to do a fun activity. I am always a big fan of doing that. More nature days to your self care. Yeah, I always tell people, even in your busiest time, you can set aside a few minutes to maybe listen to your favorite song and then keep going. Making it to bed on time, yes, that's a great one. And so, really focusing on what you can do for yourself. And a lot of the time, people may feel like, oh, if I'm paying attention to myself, I'm not helping others, or I'm not doing this, or whatever. But I always like to say, like, part of your job is to keep yourself running. And that includes rest and relaxation. And so, really just kind of focusing on what you would want to do and just taking the chance and just doing it. I'm seeing some love and work of wanting to improve on, yeah, looking for more opportunities is great. When you're in college, like, this is meant to be a stepping stone to whatever kind of career to. Awesome. Well, thank you all for putting things into the chat. I love reading them. Feel free to add more if you want to. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about what life design is. So, one of the things that kind of comes up when I work with students is they either don't know what they want to do or they've always known. And so, what I would say is that most people tend to lean towards not knowing what they want to do. Like I had mentioned earlier, when I was younger, I wanted to be a marine biologist. But as I grew older, I realized it wasn't just about playing with animals, which is what I wanted to do. And so I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I had a lot of people in my family who were in healthcare. And so I was like, well, maybe I can become a doctor. But I kind of want to try this out first to make sure it's something I want to do. Also, I knew like med school is expensive. And so I started my college career trying to become a nurse. And I got my certified nursing assistant certificate, and I was able to work at a retirement home. And while I was there, I very quickly realized that I did not want to be a nurse. It wasn't for me, but one of the things I did enjoy was talking to my patients. And so I kind of looked at that and I was like, okay, there's something there. Because I was able to have that experience, I was able to understand myself more and I was able to really learn of where I wanted to go. And so looking on the screen, I see that now as one of my steps along the way as a prototype. And this is just a fancy word of saying, like, oh, this is like, you know, testing something out. And so I ended up switching to psychology and then I switched to counseling and career counseling, and now I'm here. And I like to tell my story because it shows that, like, I'm the type of person that needs to try things out to understand if I would enjoy it or not. And I find that's true for a lot of other people. Plus, it kind of goes into a lot of these five kind of like questions that we have. And really, what design thinking does is it helps organize these questions. So, first, it's like knowing yourself. What matters to you? What are your interests? I had an interest in helping people, but I didn't really want to, do nursing. So, how can I change it? Also, empathizing with possible situations. A lot of us have friends and families that we, you know, have to kind of include with a lot of our career decision making. And so, understanding how your choices impact others, how they impact you, what are some challenges and opportunities you might encounter, what, kind of like things that are happening in life that make it harder or easier to get to what you want to do. The next one is a really interesting one. Challenge any assumptions. Are there any beliefs that are holding you back? Can you approach a situation differently? One thing we know in the career development world is that as we grow up, we get a lot of images related to people in different professions. And especially if it's someone that, if you're just seeing people that don't look like you or doesn't seem to be like you, there can often be kind of subconscious like belief like, oh, I can't do that because it's not for people like me. And so I always ask people, it's like, why can't you do this job that you might be interested in? Next one is redefining problems. Can you think of problems differently to find a solution? Can you get help solving your problems? These are things that when you're feeling stuck, like ask for help. There's a lot of people here at UNLV who are really wanting to make sure that you succeed. But also, it's like when you look at a problem, it's like, okay, maybe I can't go about it this way. What's another way I can tackle this? And that goes to identifying alternative solutions. What are some other viable options? Is there a way to try it before making a decision? And you can do this with anything in your life. So, like picking a career, where to move to, if you're going to grad school, wherever. And so, the design thinking process really is meant to encourage you to think critically, like a designer, because you do have options and exploring yourselves and your options in order to truly design a life that you will ultimately love. And so you're here, you're at the point of like, hey, I need to solve a problem or come up with something, or I need to think about my career. Now, these are the 6 mindsets of life design. Be curious, radical collaboration, reframe problems, storytelling, bias toward action, and it's a process. And so, going a little bit more into detail with these, being curious, curiosity is a prerequisite for designing the life you want to live. When we think back to those jobs that we, put into the chat at the beginning, what could you do to potentially know what it's like to have that job? Because I'm assuming that's not a job that we all have at this point. Like, and so how can you find out more information? What is it actually like to be a surgeon? or a CEO. And then the next one is radical collaboration. There's an old proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And so asking for help. I know here at Career Services, like everyone here is really committed to the idea of helping you get to that next step. And I would say the same thing with like the Grad Academy. I would say the same thing with a lot of people on campus. And so asking questions, asking for help. I know, like, even if I don't have the answer, I'll try and figure out what the answer is or who could answer it for you. And the next one is reframing problems. Again, if you're feeling stuck, how can you look at the problem differently? What can you do? What is actually in your control and what may not be in your control? And the next one, storytelling. What story do you want to write for yourself? Who were you previously and who do you want to be? Who we were 5 years ago is vastly different than who we are now. And honestly, 5 years from now, we'll be different people as well. But the thing is about the future is like you can work on where you want to go and who you want to be. And so I always tell people imagine you're writing a book, everything in the past is the previous chapters. You have a bunch of blank pages for the future. And so, what are you writing for your present? The next one, and this is hard to accept, it's a process. Life design is meant to be about the journey and not whatever the end goal is. It's about focusing on the process and seeing what happens next. I know we've all heard that thing of, oh, what are you going to do 5 years from now or 10 years from now or whatever? And, we might have hope, but really that's such a long time. And so a better question is like, what do you hope you'll be doing? And then what are you going to do in order to get there? And finally, bias toward action. Like I had mentioned with my nursing, you it's very hard to tell if a path is for you if you don't experience part of that path. And there's different ways to go about it. So like, I always tell people there's different levels. Getting a job in it might be a little too much sometimes because that's like, potentially putting yourself not in a great situation. Even with internships, like, that's a pretty big commitment sometimes. It could be for a few months to even a year. And so, like, what can you do to get a little bit of experience just to make sure this path is for you? And that's something we can help you with here at Career Services. And it's just something to think about. Just because if you never try or, experience something, it's so hard to know if it's for you. All right. So now we're going to go into one of the bigger pieces here. And this is called an Odyssey plan. And we're going to spend some time talking about this, as well as I'm going to give you some time to work on starting an Odyssey plan yourself. So, what is an Odyssey plan? So, this is basically an activity in which you create 3 alternative versions of the next 5 years of your life. It's meant to allow you to produce 3 different versions of your life and future plans. And it really allows you to plan for experiences that you wish that you'll have in the next 5 years. So, what makes a good Odyssey plan? And I'm going to be showing some examples shortly. But really, the first one is a visual graphical timeline. I've worked with students, and one of the things that I've recognized is that a lot of the times they have ideas up in their head, but they don't necessarily get to think them through too much because it's not on paper. And when you do the transfer from what's in your head to the page, it allows you to make things a little bit more cemented. Having a title for each operation, which you'll see, questions that this alternative is asking. And this is basically what are the questions that would potentially stop you from going down this path? Finally, a dashboard. And I'll show this again shortly, but basically, how do you feel about your resources to go this path? How much do you like going down this path? Are you confident with the path? And is the path actually coherent? So this is a lot. And it is really can be a little bit difficult to read, so I'll go ahead and talk through it. But this is kind of what I would work with students on Odyssey planning. And so really what it is I'm working with a student and they're like, okay, I have a few different ideas of what I want to do for my future. This one, as you can see by the title, is going all in the Silicon Valley story. And then, as you can see, um, the 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, these are years. These are what you want to do within each of these years. And when you're writing your Odyssey plan, what you're going to do is you're going to be a lot more specific in the early years, and then you can be a little more vague in the later years. But really, for this person, they're like, okay, I want to create some kind of prototype and I want to find a co-founder. Like, I want to work with someone in order to do this business. And that's the career piece. But they also want to think about their personal life. Because again, you can't really separate your career from your personal life because you're spending what 40 something hours a week at your job, and like it's a big impact on your life. And so some of their personal goals are signing up for a personal trainer. And then they're also like, I want to do something with family, but I don't know what it is. And so these are the goals for the first year. Now, as we move into the second year, you can kind of see what the next steps are. They want to raise money and they want to create a second prototype. Again, this is for their business. And it's really about like, okay, how can we grow and expand? And then looking at the more personal stuff, they want to train and run for a half marathon. And they want to maybe take their family to a Hawaii vacation. Getting into year 3, they want to make more money. They want to make their beta product. And again, they're continuing their athletic journey. They're, making sure that they're spending time with family. So climbing Mount Whitney, going to Australia for a vacation. And then for the next years, we can see like, oh, they want to scale up. They already have this business. They've made prototypes and made beta products. They want to make a big growth, as you can see by this hockey stick growth idea. And then they want to continue their fitness journey. They want to hike the 100 miles of the Pacific Coast Trail. Again, family stuff coming in. They eventually want to take their business public. Again, they still want to know what they want to do with their family. That's still a bit of a question there. But, they really want to keep their mind and body and family healthy. So this is what they thought of for the next 5 years for one of their paths. Now, if you look down at the bottom, you can see some of these dashboards. First one is resources, and it's pretty much right in the middle. This is saying like they think they have some resources, but they don't think they have all the resources in order to pull this path off. The next one is like they seem to like it pretty much. It's a lot closer to hot and cold. They feel pretty confident as well that they can pull this path off. And then the coherence is kind of right in the middle as well. There's still a lot of up in the air or questions that they have for this plan. And so really what if they had decided to go down this, particular path, part of, the work would be like, okay, how can we really make this more coherent? And then over here, they have their title again. This is just a fun way to kind of differentiate between the paths. And then the questions. And these are questions that they ask themselves about what about this path comes up. And the first one was, do I have what it takes to do this? And that includes a lot of self-reflection, a lot of confidence growing. Is my idea good enough? Again, in the tech world, it's hard to say what might take off. And then will I attract investors, money, and that kind of stuff? And so this is one potential plan that this person has. But it doesn't mean it's the only thing that they have. So I want to go into a second